Welcome to Respectfully You Can Choke, a podcast where two down-to-earth projectors in human design, Lynette and Victoria, dive into the world of authenticity, empowerment, and unapologetic self-expression. We bring our unique perspectives and insights to the table, challenging societal norms and offering authentic takes both individually and as a collective duo. Each week, join us as we explore topics ranging from personal growth and relationships to career and spirituality, all through the lens of just being authentic and unapologetic. With our witty banter and heartfelt stories, we create a space where listeners feel seen, heard, and inspired to live their truth. Respectfully You Can Choke promises to be your go-to source for thought-provoking conversations and empowering advice. Tune in and discover how to honor your healing while navigating the complexities of modern life. Get ready to embrace your authentic self and finally accept that you are not here to be digestible or play small for the comfort of others. And for those of you who have benefited from our playing small, respectfully, you can choke.
Hiya.
Hey Victoria, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm well, actually. I'm just so proud of us having started this and how consistent we've been with our recordings, and it just feels right.
It does, doesn't it? Scarily so sometimes.
Scarily so because of the whole fear of being seen, but it feels right. It feels right. It
Yeah,
does. It does.
absolutely.
So today, our topic of discussion is what the actual fuck is self-care anyway? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what is self-care? Now, we know it can look different for different people, depending on which part of the world you're in. Some people don't even know what self-care is in the way that we know self-care. And I say this lightly. Now, bearing in mind, guys, when we use the word self-care, pretty much most of it will be in open quotation marks because
We
what is
don't really
self-care?
subscribe
We
to
don't
the
really
way they
subscribe.
see. Yeah, to the way the mainstream presents self-care, really.
Yes, so that is today's topic, which is a very broad but deep topic. So
Absolutely.
I guess, I don't know, what are you thinking, Victoria? Are you thinking we should maybe
I just
touch
think
on what
I think we
you
should
think? Yeah,
I just think we should go straight in because we were
yeah,
talking about misconceptions, isn't it? So
yes,
I think we should have a little chat about what are the common misconceptions that we've seen, online in real life between our friends at
yes,
work, at work
yes,
because nowadays corporate jobs like to fancy themselves knowing a little bit about self-care and they have all sorts of posters about what you should be
yeah,
doing so you can deal with the corporate stress. Sorry, I'm
yeah. Deal with the torture that we're inflicting on you. Yeah, book a massage with our in-house massage therapist. Yeah, make sure
at
you are still
work.
at work. Yeah, but make
But
sure
get
you're back
back
at
to
your
your desk
desk.
and do your
Yeah,
work.
get back on the slave ship. Okay, so all right, the common misconception. So what came up for me, I would say, right, is how colonized, I'm going there,
Yeah.
self-care has become, right? How standard rooted traditions such as yoga and meditation is practiced as a standard thing in certain parts of the world, i.e., Asia, i.e., Africa, right?
Yeah.
And these practices come from places like Asia, yeah? Meditation
Absolutely.
is a standard form of practice across the world, mainly a lot in indigenous places, right? With indigenous people. And go to a village in, say, a country in Africa or a country in Asia, a remote, removed village that
with the people who do not use social media or even use the internet like that, but live happily, and say to them, oh, so what self-care practices? They'd look at you like, what are you talking about, self-care? And so you would then think, with your savior mentality, oh,
Let me
bless
teach
them.
you.
Oh, bless them. Let me teach you. You don't know what self-care is. The whole time they've just meditated for a whole hour before starting their day. They've just done some yoga under the sun before starting their day, right?
Yeah,
And this is what has come up for me
yeah.
at the start of this topic: the colonization, and in turn, the capitalist, nasty. They've taken these practices and flipped it and sold it back to the masses because they
Absolutely.
can make money off of practices such as go and book a session with a class with a teacher who's going to charge you £50 in a well purpose built class, so you can take your Instagram pictures and post them to say you've just done
Oh
yoga,
my
you're
God.
a yoga
Oh,
babe, you're a
do you know what came
Pilates
up
babe.
now? What came
Yeah.
up for me now? And I find it so, oh my God. You know, the puppy yoga,
Ah,
the goat yoga.
goat yoga.
I know. I mean,
Don't get me wrong, it is cute because I love
it's
I
cute.
love
Of
I
course
love
it's
these
cute, but don't
animals.
call it
Cute.
yoga.
But really?
But don't call it yoga. Let's say it's, I don't know, call it something else, right? I'm just thinking it's so disrespectful, and it's been something that I've been more aware of in the past 3-4 years, because I was very interested in yoga as it was presented to me by the media
Mhm,
and
mhm,
whatever
mhm.
whatever came through, but something always felt off, because I
Yes.
have tried to go to yoga classes and something always felt off, and I felt like I was doing it wrong, and I felt like it wasn't just the right thing, right? And I now realize it's because it was off. It's because it is not the authentic practice that yoga is meant to be. Yoga is not a workout. Like you're not out there presenting your Lululemon leggings in, do you know what I mean? Like, how, come on, because that's all I can think about.
You're kidding me. I did not expect that. That is too funny.
The
Oh,
Lululemon leggings.
don't forget the Pilates, babe. Look, the thing is, right? Just understand, we're not coming for people who are going to, yoga and Pilates and all of this stuff
Absolutely
genuinely
not.
as a form of, you know, genuine form of self-care, and it helps alleviate their mental health problems, and it helps them keep grounded. We're not coming for you. We are coming for those at the top of the pyramid that have repurposed and sold these things to us, and making those who cannot then afford it marginalized groups. And by marginalized groups, I'm referring to lower income groups, right?
No,
The mother or the father who's trying to make ends meet, and
literally.
it's not limited to a race, just marginalized groups, lower income households, right? Single
Yeah.
mothers who are looking after their children, and the last thing, the first thing they really want to do is go to that yoga class, but the last thing they actually can do is go to that yoga class because they need to pay their bill. They need to ensure that the most
Childcare.
prioritized, exactly, things are done, their children are seen to, and then you're talking about a £50 for 3 classes yoga session. So now, here's what's going to happen. Now that person is going to feel like shit because social media is pumping all these consumer capitalist money making schemes at them as a form of self-care. And if you're not doing this self-care, you're not going to be the it girl, be that girl. You've seen the Pinterest posts, you've seen the Instagram, you've seen the YouTube, how to be that girl. Okay, Sue.
Boss.
Okay, Kerry.
Sue.
Okay, Kerry. Okay, Marsha. Like, how to be that girl. But then if I see you on the bus, you're giving dirty looks. Oh, but you've just posted how to be that girl
Love and
with a
light, yeah.
list of things that I have to pay for to look like that girl, to practice self-care. Do you know how to set boundaries? Do you know how to sit with yourself and check yourself?
So obviously we talk about what is not self-care for us from our point of view and from what we've come to realize in our journeys.
Yes.
We know what self-care is not for us. So
For us. For us.
for
Don't get me
us, for me and
wrong.
you,
Don't get me wrong. I'll be honest. All right. I'm going to take it right back, right? I'm going to talk about when I first realized. Okay, so yes, it's repurposed. It's rooted in this colonial, where they've traveled to and parts of the world, taken indigenous practices, repurposed, and thrown it back to us with a fee. And the things that they have said, the places in the world that they call, and I say this loosely with air quotation marks, please, I do not subscribe to this term, third world countries, naturally practice. It's like my mum would say to me when I would say, when the topic veganism would come up, that's another form of self-care for some people, right? Another thing that gives me the ick, the word veganism, not the doing, the word. And
yeah.
she'd look at me and she'd say, "You lot are funny. Go to some villages back home and see how people naturally just cook natural, vibrant, meat-free, nutritious, wholesome foods. And they don't even know what veganism is. That's just standard for them.
It's just
It's just
food.
standard. It's just food. It's not even just, it's not that it's just food. They understand the nourishment it brings to their body, right? They give back to the earth, but they don't go around giving these things terms and labels and
And creating division. Creating
creating
division.
division.
Because if you eat something different than I eat, you're in the wrong.
Yeah, yeah,
And how does that make sense? But this
yeah.
is where we are at. That we live in a world that is just everything's trying to polarize us, isn't it?
Wow, that part, that part. So
We're
I
not going
guess
to get into that.
another topic for another day. So I guess the
Yeah.
question I want to ask then, what's an example of a time when you realized you needed to prioritize a different type of self-care for your mental health?
There's been a few times. There has been a few times. Um, but I think I'll talk about the one that's the freshest because that's where I'm at, and I think that's that needs to be spoken about because I do think there are a lot of people out there that struggle with that. So, example of a time. Well, it was in London with you when
Oh,
I realized that
right,
I needed a different type of soothing. I
right.
needed a different way of finding safety within my body,
Mm,
and um, it was a process and a journey, and a lot of self-inquiry went on, and a lot of yeah, it was a difficult process to get to that point. So I'm a smoker, right? And that has been my refuge for a long time, particularly in the past 4 years, particularly since lockdown. I definitely felt like I felt something big was coming in 2020, and I just didn't know how to handle it. And I couldn't, back then I couldn't even access therapy and all of that. So I self-soothe with smoking, right? Smoking weed. So, and it's become something that's been very much a part of me, right? It's just my thing because I don't drink and I don't do that, and this is how I relax. However, the point where it came to me that I need a different way is when I realized that I'm making choices to self-soothe instead of progressing, if that makes sense.
mm-hmm,
Like instead of doing any work on the things that I've said that I want to work on, I felt so stressed and so insecure about all of the things that I may or may not be able to do, or am I good enough for this, or am I this? So I just self-soothe with weed. And
It's
now,
interesting how would you say you were seeing that form of self-soothing as self-care? Was there any moment
in a
where you
twisted
felt
way,
that was,
yeah.
yeah,
In a
like
twisted way,
honestly,
yeah.
yeah,
I did because I just considered that's my time.
yeah,
That's my time with me.
hmm
And that's that. And some people have this, some people have that. I have this.
hmm
That's how I looked at it, and that's how I saw it for myself. And whilst it is strange, right? Because it's something that I quite enjoyed doing, right? And it's been such a big part of my life. I feel like I've lost a friend
mm.
in a weird way.
No, I get it.
Like I
I get it.
feel I felt alone for a lot of these nights nowadays.
Mm. Mm. So just to
And
ask, you're actually quitting
yeah,
from since that day. Do you mind going into the details? And you don't have to if you don't want to, of
not
that
today.
time. Okay.
Not today.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Not today. I think it's a big one, and that we will explore it a little bit further. But I just need to be more
Yeah,
powerful in that.
yeah.
It wasn't straight away. It took me a week or two to get my mind into this is not it.
Mm,
This is not it. This is not who I want to be, and this is not. To be fair, like one of the things that really came up for me is that I realized by putting down all the things that I wanted to achieve and what I wanted my life to look like, and um, what kind of life I wanted to lead, I realized that this has no room in it. You know,
yeah.
and also the person that the person that I am, this habit that I have so ingrained in me, and I made it part of my personality, you know, is not serving me to who I'm meant to become and who I say I want to become. And I just felt like a little bit like a fraud, right? How can I say that I want all of these things, and I do all of this work on myself, and I do the shadow work, and I've delved into the deepest, darkest pits of sorrow of my own soul, right? But then I continue doing this in an unhealthy way because I believe I became codependent with the substance. And whether we want to put labels on it doesn't matter. Like just the way I felt in relation to it.
Yes, yes. It's that part. How you
That
felt.
that's
Yeah.
it. So that for me that was a moment where I realized, okay, yes, it soothes me. Yes, it calms me down. Yes, it brings the energy. But is it actually good for me? Is it actually conducive to growth? Which
Mm,
is what I advocate for, and which is what I feel like my life's work is about, right?
yeah.
And that's when I realized that I have to make the difficult decisions. And if not now, when? And if I don't make these decisions now, if I don't choose to um, find different ways of caring for myself, I have no I just feel like I would have no leg to stand on. If I didn't achieve the things that I wanted to achieve and I kept doing this, I wouldn't have a leg to stand on. I'm not saying that because I'm not smoking now, I will, propel myself into the world and be successful straight away. It's just that I don't want, if I am to fail, I don't want to fail because of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I get it.
So,
I get it.
yeah. Do you have a moment where you've realized that you needed different?
Yes, for me, there's been many moments actually. We always talk about this whole rebirth. Just when you think you've crossed a checkpoint, another checkpoint comes in the game. What comes to mind, I don't know if this is the actual first time I realized, mm, the self-care they've been selling to me doesn't resonate. Was How old is my youngest child? He is 9, right? So I'm gonna say about 10 years ago, 9, 10 years, about 9 years ago, after the birth of my second child, I was experiencing what I now know to be severe postnatal depression. Um, there were so many factors around that moment. You know, we wasn't my husband, we weren't married at the time, but my partner and I, we weren't making barely any money. You know, he was working so many hours. We had just moved. The council had just given us a place, which yeah, we were happy because finally we had our own like place. But I was just in a very dark place in my life, and I couldn't understand why mothering the second time round felt like hell. Um, and that was around the time when I just started realizing the terms for some of the feelings that I was experiencing. And that's also a time when I questioned whether that's around the time I discovered PMDD, pre premenstrual dysphoric disorder. I'm so glad it's widely discussed now, but 10 years ago, it wasn't widely discussed. We, as women who were experiencing those things, felt like we were crazy. I remember going to the doctor and he was looking at me like I was speaking a foreign language he'd never heard of. I would say PMDD and he's like, what's that? And I'm looking at him like, what do you mean, what's that? You, I'm telling you what it is, and you need to now help me through this. But anyway, so in experiencing the postnatal depression and realizing, well, I can't afford to go and get my nails done as a form of self-care. I can't afford to go to the hairdresser as a form of self-care. I'm just going to do my hair myself at home. And at that time, I've always been a loose natural, right? I've always been a natural girl in terms of my hair. Um, and after I gave birth to him, I just couldn't find the time to do my hair. So all the natural girlies out there, obviously we've progressed now, but back then, natural hair and all this wash and goes was just starting, right? And I just didn't have the time. I didn't have the time for self-care in the way I was taught self-care was. I couldn't find the time to comb my hair. I let my hair go, right? And I've always had long hair. And I shaved my hair, shaved it bald completely. I looked back and I was like, damn, was I going through a crisis? Shaved my hair bald. I mean, it looked good because I dyed it like platinum blonde or whatever, but shaved my hair. And I remember realizing, damn, like I'm failing. I've got these 2 children. My husband's always at work. I don't really have time for myself. I didn't like the area we were living. The area we were living was a shithole, right? It was horrendous. So I didn't
Yeah.
even want to go out for walks, right? Because every time I would push myself to go out for walks with my children and try to do the cute mothery things, the place was filthy. So I would just lock myself indoors, right?
Yeah.
And I would realize, damn, like I really am failing at this self-care thing. I can't afford anything. How am I supposed to do self-care? And then I took to blogging, right? I set up a Wix website, and ever since I was a child, I've always loved writing. Always loved writing. Ever since I could hold a pen or a pencil, I would just write stories, write my feelings. And that was the first time I started writing and really, but not when I say writing, I mean writing for the world, for people to see. That was absolutely scary because vulnerability for me was a scary thing. I'm naturally a sensitive person, but I was always taught not to be vulnerable. You know, keep your cards close to your chest. Don't tell people what you're going through. Keep it in the family, keep it under the carpet, put up and shut up. Yeah. And go out into the world and get on with life. And so when I really started blogging and sharing it on my Instagram, it was scary. But I look back and I'm like, actually, that was my form of self care. Really sitting with myself and sharing the real, and I mean the real. I was super transparent in my blog posts. I remember there was a Mother's Day where it was Mother's Day. My children and hubby, they cooked me breakfast and they were like, Happy Mother's Day. And I was like, get out. I don't want to see any of you. And I locked myself in my room and all I did was cry. All I did was cry. I remember it clearly that Mother's Day. I promise you, I cried like I was dying and I couldn't understand what the hell. And I remember blogging about it. I wrote about it and it was scary posting it because I was like, oh my God, people are going to think, does this girl deserve to have her children? But to me, that was just real transparency, talking about motherhood in a real, raw way, not talking about motherhood in the way that, oh, my kids are my life. Yes, they are my life. That just comes with it, the territory. I would kill anyone for my kids. However, I was trying to figure out who I was now as a mother with two
Yeah.
children under 5, who I was as a woman looking after my partner who's gone to work and now I'm having to cook and clean and make sure everything's on par before he gets home from work. Not that he had that expectation of me, but that's what I saw my
You
mother
have.
do. So that's what I thought I had to do. And I remember going through what I now believe to be oh, there's a term for it. Uh when you dissociate a lot. That you completely dissociate. It's like dissociative identity disorder, I think,
Oh, yeah,
where
yeah, yeah. DID or
the
something. I
idea,
think it's
I'm
called,
not
yeah.
sure. I think so. Essentially, what I was experiencing, and if anyone's listening and you know the terms for this, please feel free to just, drop us a message or drop it in the comments. I remember going to the toilet just to, go pee. And I was convinced I was still dreaming. I felt like nothing was I was experiencing was real. And I kept trying to wake myself up. I was awake.
Wow.
I wasn't sleeping. It wasn't a dream. And I was completely checked out. Like I was a walking zombie. Like it was so scary. I didn't know. It just felt like I wasn't real anymore. It just felt like everything felt like a dream. Everything felt weird. Nothing felt real. And I was like, in that moment, I said, whoa, I cannot live like this. I have 2 children I need to look after. There were times where I wasn't taking them to school because I couldn't get out of bed. Like, I mean, my eldest, he was 5 at the time, his attendance record was horrendous because I just couldn't bring myself to take him to school. I didn't change his
Wow.
school because I really liked his school at the time, and his school was like
Far.
half an hour bus journey away, right? So it meant I would have to get on the bus with the pushchair. The bus would drive off because when you have a pushchair, there's no space on the bus for another pushchair if there's already a 1 or 2 pushchairs on the bus. So I would often have to miss buses. There were a lot of times where my son wouldn't go to school because I just couldn't
Bring
literally
myself
bring
to go
myself
through that.
to go through that or get out of bed. I would literally do the bare minimum, right? And so I would say that's when writing became my form of self-care.
Mm.
Writing and sharing my journey of my mental health, even though I didn't know what it was I was experiencing at the time, just sharing my journey of mental health and motherhood in a real raw way. That was the first time I would say, what would you call that? Being open? I don't know. What would be the term for that?
Hmm. I think,
Creative.
yeah. I think I don't know. I think a lot of these moments of transmutation happen in rock bottom, to be
Yeah.
fair. So,
Yeah. And
whilst I,
I remember writing a blog post about this actually. Now I think I remember writing because I'm a quiet rebel. I'm not a loud rebel, right? I'm just an internal rebel. I throw away a lot of things that people push at me. If it doesn't sit right with me, I don't want to hear it. And I remember taking to my blog and literally writing about this self-care and realizing I didn't fit in. I didn't resonate with what I was told. Run a bath with 2 under 5, sorry. When my husband's at work 24/7 because he's just trying to bring home the cash. And how am I supposed to run a bath? My youngest is breastfed 24/7, right? Purely breastfed. How am I supposed to run a bath? Please, somebody tell me. By the time my partner gets home, it's super late. They're
yeah,
supposed to be in bed. By that time, I'm done. I don't even want to think about anything else, let alone sit and wait for a bath to run.
And it's not even that, but you don't really have the energy to do things for yourself when you're in complete survival mode, and you also have
Survival.
two human beings that are depending on you, and literally they are depending on you being there, present, being able to cook them food and take them to school and do all of that, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
And
that's
one thing about
huge.
me, I would always cook home cooked meals, really good home
Mm,
cooked meals. Even though we weren't like rich or whatever, there was always brilliant food on the table. Like even my
yeah.
youngest, I would make all his food from scratch. Like I was really hard on myself. I was like, no, I'm not gonna be that mother just because I'm struggling. That's gonna, pump them with junk food. Like, yeah, occasionally we'll have like, junk food, but so I was in survival mode. I didn't have the capacity for anything outside of doing what I needed to do for my family and I to survive. So I would say, yeah, that was the moment, and I think that writing and sharing my mental health journey, and the reason why I would say that was my form of self-care looking back, is because it was a release. I was finally sharing with the world my story, my journey, where people who knew me, friends, family, acquaintances, always saw me as calm, collected, because I never, we've discussed this in the last episode. We don't look like what we're going through, right?
Yeah.
And I just have a very calm energy about me. And I would keep I would mask, I'll keep it together when I'm out in public. So when I first started sharing that, people were like shocked. I remember a friend who I'd known for years, and he was like, he just couldn't get his head around it. And I remember our relationship changing after me sharing this, because he didn't know how to then hold me. He didn't know which capacity to be a friend. Because it's like, but you've always been the strong, fun, bubbly one. So now I'm confused as to how you're saying you've been experiencing severe depression, but every time I see you, you're laughing, you know? And
Yeah.
I'm not mad at it. That was his capacity. Even my partner couldn't understand it. He didn't understand it for years, and how to hold, in which capacity to hold me. So for me, that was my first realization of self-care and what I needed to do to release and
Right.
somewhat look after my mental health. Writing was my outlet.
Mm, that's that's big, and I think it's such a big topic as well, because obviously I'm not a mother, but I have friends who are mums. I have my own mum, right, who has had her own, bless her, share of everything, and it's crazy that people don't talk about it. Didn't used to, especially when you were going through it. I'm sure. What was it? 9 years ago. That was 2015. My
Yeah,
people were not talking about all of this,
no,
especially postpartum depression,
no,
especially, which is
no.
quite crazy.
Yeah,
Like, have we remember reading books about, back in the day, about how women died of nostalgia. That's
yeah.
what it used to be called,
Oh,
nostalgia.
hysteria. Or what was the other one? Hysteria.
Hysteria or nostalgia or whatever, right? Or they used to kill themselves because of depression, but no one knew about it. No one cared about it because, hey, you fulfilled your purpose on this earth. You brought life into this world, so okay, that's it. There's no further care along the line. So that's so big. What
Yeah.
is it? How did you? Now, obviously, writing was your outlet, but was that the moment where, through writing you kind of went out of it a little bit?
Yeah, through writing and researching what I was experiencing, because I couldn't afford therapy, I had 6 weeks, I think, or 12 weeks of CBT, because I was
Through
desperate at
NHS?
this point. Yeah, I was desperate. I finally opened up, and it was scary opening up and going to the doctors, because I was always told, um, when I was pregnant with my first child, I was always told by family members, don't share your mental health with the NHS, they'll take your children away. And I understand where that sentiment comes from. I do
Right.
understand. I was angry for a time because I was like, oh my God, I could have had help a long time ago. I do understand where that sentiment comes from. I
Yeah.
would say, because it does happen, especially
Yeah.
to women from certain backgrounds, you know, Asian, African, Caribbean, like lower class. So yes, it does happen. I'm not going to dispute that. But there could have been a way that it was communicated to me instead of the extreme, you know?
Yeah.
So when I finally, you know, spoke up and I went to my doctors, it was so scary. I was bricking it. I was thinking, oh my God, they're gonna think I'm incompetent, they're gonna take my children. And that I received CBT, and my therapist at the time said to me, she looked at me in like disbelief and she was like, I've never known anyone to have so little self-compassion for themselves. And I was like, oh. But I think through the writing and sharing and having some CBT, which I didn't enjoy, but I did it, I was able to really start looking within. And that is when I would say my journey of really looking within, really doing the work, I would say started like properly. Like I've always been quite a self-aware person, but doing nothing with the self-awareness. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I know all of this stuff, but what am I doing about it? Like I know it's not enough to just know. You have to also sit with yourself and put it into practice. So through the writing, through the researching, through a bit of CBT and speaking to a therapist, I realized, okay, like nobody's coming to save you. Why are you being angry with the world? Why are you being angry
Mm.
with your parents? Why nobody is coming to save you?
You gotta save yourself.
You have to save yourself. And I think even just coming to that
Yeah.
realization that nobody's coming to save you, you have to save yourself, was a form of self-care, because it's like I am caring for myself now. I am
Yeah.
understanding that it starts and ends, as you said last in the last episode, with us.
Yeah. That is so true. Sorry, it made me tear up because it's that I think we've all had, not all, but I don't know. Me
Yeah,
and
I know.
you. Let's just talk about me and you for now.
There are a lot of people who have. Just because I'm a mother,
Definitely.
you're not a mother, doesn't mean we don't have shared, you know, women.
Yeah. It's just those moments when you realize that actually no one is coming to save you. And I think in our 20s, I personally in my 20s, I had a long period of waiting
Yeah. Oh God.
for,
Oh yes.
for something to happen,
Yes.
for the right boyfriend to show up, or
Yeah.
for the right job to show up and
Yeah.
save my life.
Because you're a
And
good person. Why wouldn't it? Like
right?
you think you're a good person, so naturally, like whatever you believe in, if you believe in a higher power, it's just gonna bless me, right, baby? It's like you
Honestly,
got to put some work in, and the rest will happen.
and it's all about what we think is possible. And I remember, like, when I was 19, there's something that I've actually spoke about. When I was 19, I went to the States for a work and travel program, right? Which I was studying in an American university that was placed in Bulgaria with American professors and everything. So that was my dream. And my other dream was to go to the States. And that, going to the States for work and travel meant that you had the opportunity to make the money, yeah,
Hmm.
to pay for your school and also travel for the
Yeah.
last month of your visa. Now, mindset coming from such a limited mindset when it came to money and what's possible, and I couldn't even imagine, I couldn't even conceive the kind of money I had to pay for that school. Okay, naturally I didn't make the money. I think I didn't get paid for the pet for the first month and a half because my social security didn't come until late. So it was just so long. So what I'm trying to get at is the fact that our mindset and what we think is possible dictates the reality of our lives, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's another form of self-care. Inquiring, asking yourself questions.
Absolutely.
There's people who don't, Lynette. I'm shocked to find this out
It's
because I
Crazy.
How do you not question
Mhm.
anything?
I don't know. But then sometimes I'm like, that must be bliss.
Do you think though?
Yes and no. Like, let's, girl, we've spoken about how depressing it can be being too aware.
Oh yeah.
And so sometimes I'm like, when I'm really going through it, I'm like, you know what? I just wish I didn't know anything. I think it'd be so nice to just be ignorant. Like, that must be quite a privilege to just be so ignorant. No? Probably just me. Like, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, you
I
know? I
think
wouldn't like to live that way, but sometimes I'm like, is it a privilege to be so bliss? Because your world, you haven't experienced anything that's made you question I don't know. It's
yeah. It
it's
is a privilege.
interesting.
It is absolutely an effect of a privileged life, if that makes sense. Like I don't
Yeah.
want to
No,
put
just
the
call it for what it is.
but it is true because we have had to wonder about all of these things,
Yeah.
right? We have had to ask ourselves questions. We have had to adjust to environments. We've had to, and I'm not saying
Yeah.
that, people who come from privilege don't have that. It's just on a different level. We've had to do it to survive.
I
Okay?
mean, to some degree, people who come from certain levels of privilege do not have that. Let's take it deep. What's your
Fine.
lineage? What's your lineage?
Well, I'm Romanian,
Okay,
100% as far as I know.
okay.
um,
And what do you know, if at all, about your history as a
mm,
Romanian woman? Now think about your DNA holding memories.
yeah.
I am African diaspora. My family are from Sierra Leone and, West Africa. Think about the deep rooted ancestral.
Trauma.
So please, let's call it for what it is. Yeah.
Honestly,
Some
yeah,
people, and it's not about just the color of your skin, because look at the color of your skin and look at the color
yeah.
of mine. If we was to stand next side by side and not say a word, people would assume just by default, because you are white, and I do this loosely because the terms white and black really, that's another topic. I don't really subscribe to. I say it because it's just conditioning. Now, if we were standing side by side without talking, without speaking,
Yeah.
people would point to you and say, well, she's come from a place of privilege because she's white. Until you speak and they hear your accent and they're like, oh, she's a
Oh,
different kind of
actually,
white.
a different kind of wine.
Because
Yeah, that's why I don't.
if you're sat with somebody else, like a Anglo-Saxon blooded middle class or upper class
Yeah,
British person or American person,
yeah.
you would be you're not on the same level.
No, and that's something that I've actually
So
had
again, it is a
conversation.
privilege because
It is.
our lineages have come from, and I don't know the deep history, but I have a friend who has shared with me a lot of the history of Romani, right?
Gypsies. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah, I well again, even that. Oh my God, there's so much to go into when it
right,
comes to like Romanian lineage, but
yeah,
you're absolutely right, and that
yeah,
is something that I actually have had conversations, extensive conversations with my partner about, because as you know, we do come from different backgrounds, and not only different background, he's white, middle, quite mid class, and has had what I consider to be a privileged upbringing, right? Which is not a bad thing,
yeah,
right? I mean,
yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
happy for you that
yeah,
you've
yeah,
had
yeah,
that,
hmm
But this is why it's a privilege, because some
hmm
of us don't have that privilege.
hmm
You have you've had the um, luxury of growing up with a family that told you could do anything you wanted. Okay, you've had the luxury of growing up with people who told you they loved you. I don't know how it was in your family, but I remember I had the realization that I was like, my mom actually didn't say that. Like, it was
The thing
never.
is, though, I would say I don't know if things like that are, like, I hear you. I don't know if I
Okay.
subscribe to them being a luxury, and I don't know if I subscribe to them being only limited to white middle class families, right? I think
True.
they're just people. This happens across the board. You can have, I don't know, like an African lower class, working class mum who says they love their children, who gives their children, love and tells them
Everything.
they can
Yeah.
do anything. I'm talking more the societal, economic
Yeah.
level. Like, I get
I
you.
went
I'm,
away
I'm
from
not
it. Yeah.
disputing that. I'm really not taking away from what you're
No.
saying, because I it's like my partner, when he came into my family, like when our families intertwined and he started seeing like my upbringing, he'd say, oh God, you had it quite good, didn't it? Like, equivalent, he would say I'm privileged because
Right.
my family's house is big, and I was quite shielded. I wasn't really out on road like that. I was quite, in his eyes, privileged. Do you get what I mean? But
Yeah.
psychologically, I know the emotional trauma I went through. Does that make sense?
That
So
absolutely
I'm
makes
talking more on
sense.
a socio-economic level, where just by default, you having a different accent,
Yeah.
you being Romanian,
Yeah.
the societal mindset where people would say, "We'll just assume you don't know as much as you know."
Oh yeah. Oh, oh hi. Oh yeah.
Do you get what I mean?
Oh yeah. 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 Oh
That's what I
yeah.
mean by, just by default, it's a privilege. Therefore, some people from certain backgrounds don't have these questions. Why would they have these questions? But some of us have these questions because even if we are born and raised in a privileged, and I say this loosely, air quotation marks again, privileged part of the world, where you have free healthcare, free education,
Yeah.
access to lots of jobs, right? But your lineage runs deep. So these things will come up because of the trauma and the colonization that your ancestors had to endure. Your
Yeah.
ancestors were not the
Oppression.
colonizer. They weren't the oppressor. They were oppressed. Do you get what I mean?
I absolutely get what you were saying because I don't know why I did that by the way, but I raised this topic somehow at the dinner table with honestly and trying to explain to people the fact that trauma actually affects, generational trauma. Yeah,
Yes.
when you come from a lineage of
Yeah.
generations of people who have
Yeah.
been oppressed, it
Yes.
actually affects you to a
Yes.
level where it affects to a DNA level to how
Yes.
the genes express.
Yes. It's been proven. And there's a book I would recommend. I'm still trying to get through this book. Maybe if I pick it up again, I will be fine. But because it's triggered me so many times. Called "It Didn't Start with You."
Oh God, yes, yes,
Okay.
I know that book.
That
Yeah.
blew my mind when I first read it. I bought this book years ago, and I was like, "Whoa!" That's when so many things started coming up for me. That's another moment when I picked up that book. So many things, and I was like, "It makes sense." Oh my gosh! Like, this whole
Hmm.
self care, self care, self care. It's a privilege. The way you lot's packaged form of self care, I
Yeah,
just cannot subscribe to, because
yeah,
how do I unpack the feelings I'm feeling, knowing I can't trace my roots the way some of you can trace your roots because of the dispersing and the dispersion of my ancestors. Like, not to go, oh, slavery. Yeah, I'm going there. Like, I cannot trace my roots. Whereas I had a friend who was Icelandic. She could tell me generations back, or they have a book and they know the whole lineage, how deep it runs. And I was like, that is so beautiful. But at the same time, I just wish I could do that. I
yeah,
don't, I can't. I mean, I'm trying my best. I'm on that journey. So self-care, to what degree? Because self is so vast. Victoria, you're made up of so many things,
yeah.
including the blood of your ancestors, right?
Mm.
That's yourself. How do you care for all of that? By just going to do your nails, by going to Pilates and yoga and videoing yourself and posting it, and then going back in bed and eating a like, how do you process self-care, having all this baggage that you're trying to heal?
Yeah. So you can live.
So you can live. So you not even just live, so you can thrive. We all need to thrive, not
Yeah.
survive. So you can thrive.
Well, for a long time. I mean, now I'm doing the self-care to thrive,
Yeah.
The act of giving up a habit that I realized it's not good for me, my mental health, my growth, and whatever. That's an act of self-care for me to thrive, not to live.
Yeah.
Wow, it just landed. Whoa, whoa, whoa. It just landed because I realized that smoking for me was the self-care I did to survive.
Mm. Yeah.
And now I'm in a place where I have, I suppose, yeah, I'm in a place where I can look at thriving rather than surviving.
Yeah.
I'm in a
I can
place
see
where
I
I
can
can
see
make
you're getting
choices.
emotional.
Yeah, which is because it honestly just landed now as I was saying this. I was like, whoa, okay, yeah, that's why it's such a big thing, and now it makes me emotional and it makes me so grateful because I now. So what it has been quite hard, right? The past week or so. Um, but now I'm like, oh my God, I'm grateful, actually. It filled me with gratitude when I realized that this is like me being able to take this step is because I'm in a place where I can look at thriving. I'm not actually just surviving. And that is yeah, that's very sorry, that kind of took me aback because I didn't
No, it's
realize
fine.
how much I did how much I placed on this habit.
Yeah.
But also I didn't realize the fact that this decision is made for me to thrive because I'm done just surviving.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess that
Oh.
goes into like, so, okay. So then how do you recognize when a relationship, habit, or commitment is harming your mental health?
How do we recognize that?
So for me, alcohol was my escape.
Okay.
And so I was raised in a family where alcohol was just a very like a social, like it's a casual thing, right? It's standard. Like
Yeah.
it's standard. Um so much so that, you it's just standard. It's just always there. I just always saw my parents having, and so when I got to the age where I could have alcohol, funny enough, I didn't even used to like alcohol. That's the joke. I never used to like alcohol. I used to be that young woman who, when I, would break into the clubs at 16, going into clubs I shouldn't have been going to at 16, and like pop locking and dropping it. And I would be living my best life about alcohol, right? I never did the whole drinking in my teens, and I just didn't care for it. I didn't care for it. And it was in my depression. um I've had loads of bouts of depression. My depression when I had my first son. um I I remember there was a day where I had a whole bottle of wine to myself, and I remember just like trigger, I puked and puked and puked, and in that moment something unlocked, and that was it. I was hooked onto alcohol. When I say I was hooked, couldn't it, because I felt the high, felt good, even though like my body rejected it. The high felt good. And I was like, oh, this is a nice place to be where I don't have to think. I don't have to think about, I don't have to worry about who cares about what I'm doing. I don't have to worry about what other people think of me. It makes me feel good. And that carried on for, I'm going to say, at least 10 years, where I wouldn't say I was a binge drinker, but I would be that person that I'm cooking, drink. I'm a little bit stressed, drink. I've come on from work just for the sake of drink. I'm sitting down watching TV just for the sake of drink. Like any opportunity I would get, I would have a drink. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And I look back and my dad was a functioning alcoholic. Sorry to say that. Like, just an FYI, this podcast as well for Victoria and I is a space where it's also helping us push through speaking up about things that we typically never would say because of fear of our families watching, fear of people we know listening, fear of judgment for
Yeah.
or towards our family. And this is just us processing. But if I look back, my dad was a functioning alcoholic. He was. Um, and so anyway, alcohol for me was my escape. And I knew every time I had it, I felt good. I wouldn't have to think. I wouldn't have to care about the validation of other people. I would feel confident. I would feel amazing. And worse when I started working corporate, like tech corporate, in set like the city
I
where
love a
it's just
drink.
standard. Like you go for lunch, let's have a drink. After
Yeah.
work, let's have a drink. Like at work, let's have a drink. And I'm not talking let's sneak a drink. This is like CEOs,
Yeah.
VP. We're having meetings. They've ordered loads of crates of beer, loads of crates of wine, pizzas, and you're like, "Whoa, is this our meeting? Yeah, nice." Every day's a party. And the moment I realized I needed to stop was after my dad passed. Obviously, I didn't process it properly, so I was holding in a lot of feelings and emotions. Like, and at the same time, I had disclosure fallen out with my sister. Right to this day, it's been 5 years. We're not the same. Right.
Yeah.
We're almost estranged, and there was a lot of trauma that I was going through at the time. A lot of trauma that I didn't share with people. Only like my most immediate people. And so after my dad passed, alcohol was still my thing and caffeine. So I'd have alcohol, then the next morning I'm like, oh, I need to wake up. I'd have coffee. And I make strong coffees, like black coffee. That's how I drink my coffee, black and strong. And I remember one day I now know it was like a serious like panic attack, anxiety attack. My body couldn't handle. A friend came round, I had some beer, and then the next morning I knew I needed to be at my best friend's daughter's birthday party. So I had coffee to wake me up so I could drive all the way, like quite a while away from home. My children were in the car. In that moment, my heart, it felt like I had 50 butterflies in my chest just doing a bunch of things. And I was like woof, something just hit me. I'm driving on the motorway. I'm looking at my children. I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I'm about to die right now as I'm driving. Now my mind is spiraling.
Yeah.
Now I'm like looking at my children. I'm like, oh my God. Anyway, I managed to drive us to the party safe. I'm sat in the car trying to regulate. I now have to put on this smiley face to go into, it's a children's party. It's like a toddler party. And I was just in my head, my heart's pumping, my head's hurting. I'm having serious like anxiety. And I was just like, oh my gosh. I had to tell my friend, babe, I love you, but I have to go. Like, I don't feel good. I got home. In that moment, I said, yeah, I'm going to have to stop caffeine and I'm going to have to stop alcohol. This was about 2 years ago.
Mm.
2 years ago, 3 years ago. And that was the moment I quit caffeine. I would say I quit alcohol, but I haven't quit alcohol. I only drink socially and regulated amounts. And that for me was a form of self care without having to pay for anything, go anywhere, book a spa, just removing something that wasn't good for me
Yeah.
physically and mentally. I had to stop. And then I looked at my dad. Obviously, he passed, and I was like, gosh, if I don't be careful, I'm going to go down that same route. And I am on a journey of healing ancestral habits, traumas, cycles. So I have to cut this. Like, this isn't just me. I have children, and my children are, if not the only reason, I'm still here. So yeah, that was habit wise. That is something I would say I realized was harming my mental health. It was affecting how I was relating to people. It was messing with my head. I was, I was having psychosis. I was, there was just a lot of things going on, and I was like, yeah, no, no, I couldn't relate to people anymore. I just, yeah, that was my
Huh.
habit, and I was like, I'm done. I'm done.
It's
And
quite.
actually, I've been so much better for it. My mental health has been the most stable it's ever been my whole life. The fact that I'm even able to consistently record with you and be on the ball is a big progress for me, you know? So that would be my thing for sure.
I think I just want to hit on the relationship bit because there's so many times where, especially if you love deeply and you, yeah, if you love people sometimes more than you love yourself,
Hmm.
is it's really hard to know when a relationship is really harming you
Hmm.
and when to let go from trying to fix it or trying to adjust to make that relationship better. And for me personally, it's been friendship relationships that have been the hardest. For some reason, romantic relationships, I can cut them off easily, because I kind of, I don't know, somehow when a man is involved, I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
take prisoners.
yeah, yeah. No, I honestly, we've spoken about this so many times. Friendships has been another, and it still is. We both know it still is for us a
Still
huge
is,
thing.
yeah.
But yeah,
It's a huge thing, and I think we're both learning how to newly relate with in a friendship relationship, you know, because I think we've really, I don't know, in my relationship that there's two of them that I don't want to say I've lost, but I have let go of this year, and how I recognize that that's harming me. Well, it was an incident that was happening for the second time a year later, and last time, the year before, I deeply betrayed myself, deeply, deeply betrayed what I thought was right, what I thought was the truth, and catered to other people's feelings other than my own, which, to a lot of people might seem noble. I don't see that as noble now. I see it as,
lacking boundaries.
yeah,
But and self-worth, lacking self-worth, actually. A lot of these
yeah.
things we've been told are, oh, you're just being a good person, turn the other cheek, blah, blah, fucking
Mm,
blah. Actually, let's call it for what it is. You lack boundaries for self and others. You lack self-worth
yeah, exactly.
and you lack trust in yourself.
Exactly. Lack
So
trust
this
because,
whole, like, I love you more than I love myself. Like, girl, bye. You need
no.
to love yourself first. Stop it. Because how can you love,
How
that
can you
doesn't even
love
make
me if you don't
sense.
love yourself?
Right? You can't love anyone if you don't love yourself. You just,
Exactly.
that doesn't make sense at all. So this
Absolutely.
whole noble idea that they sold to women just so we can
Mm,
continue to stay at the bottom of the totem pole, fuck that.
exactly. No more. And I think self betrayal, when it comes to relationships, for me, self betrayal is when you know, and you have to stop and think, who am I serving through this? Who am I serving? Am I serving me? Or am I trying to seem like I am this person and this other person, and I don't want to seem this other person? How about I just am, and
That
then
part,
take it or leave it,
that
right?
part. trying to look like the nice person, and and being nice is not a form of self-care, just putting it out there. Like,
No.
towards the end of last year, I would say beginning of this year actually, is we've spoken about this. I think this is something it's going to keep coming up in every episode.
Yeah.
The whole nice, oh, makes me want to fight when I hear nice now. But
Was
I
it your
remember
son
looking.
that said something about nice, about how nice is it's not it's not good to be nice, it's good to be good or something like that?
Probably. I think probably because yeah, it's something we've been discussing at home, and with the learnings that I've been learning things, I'm gonna quotation late in life, but everything is in divine timing. This is when I need to learn. This is when I'm learning. So I'm able to pass on to my children from now. So they're not having to
Yeah.
learn it later. And yeah, I remember looking at my partner and saying one day, I was just sitting with myself and I was getting angry with myself. He was like, "You okay?" And I'm like, I looked at him and I was like, "Babe, I don't want to be nice." He was like, he didn't understand what I was saying. He was like, "What? So you're planning to be mean?" I was like, "No, I don't want to be nice anymore. Nice people, when you're nice, it doesn't serve you. It makes no sense. I'm not nice. I've been getting nice and being a good human and having integrity confused, like having morals and values confused. They're not the same thing. When I'm nice, I betray myself. I put other people first. I get fucked over. I don't want to be nice. It doesn't work when you're at work. It doesn't work when you're in relationships or relating to other people. I just don't want to be nice. And he couldn't understand. He was like, "So you're planning to be mean?" I was like, "You're not understanding. Like, when I'm nice, it's because I'm more concerned about what other people are thinking. And so I'm trying to
Yeah.
look a certain way. But actually, if I was just to be myself, I'm not going to please everyone. I'll have to tell you about yourself sometimes. I'll have to tell you, actually, I don't like that. Actually, I'm not
Yeah.
happy with that. Actually, no." Then you won't see me as a nice person because I said no to you. But I'm staying true to myself.
But this is what I mean. You know, I think, yeah, nice is a word that has been really put in us to keep us small, right? To make us feel like, oh, we need to be the nice people. Like, I don't want to not be nice. And I find
I don't want to
myself,
rock the boat.
yeah, but being not, how do I say it? Being nice doesn't make you a better person, if anything. It makes you a much unhappier person because it, you will, if you continuously betray your own needs, your internal compass, whatever you're feeling coming up, and you're constantly betraying that, it's not, you know, as long as you have good intentions and you're rooted in them and you know
Mm,
that you know who you are and you know what you
mm,
stand for, you know what
mm,
you stand in, that is enough. And the
mm.
right people will be there.
Yeah.
And we don't need the people that I think we tried to be nice to. You
Yeah.
know? Because, oh God, my relationships have become, in the past, what, few months, have become a place where honesty and truthfulness, like raw, as it is, whether it bothers you or it doesn't bother you, that is the space that we're in.
Yeah.
And that, you know, I think, yes, like you said, being nice is not self care.
It's not.
Self
It's
care
not.
is honoring your authenticity and your inner voice, because we all have it and we hear it. We just choose to ignore it, right? Especially in, I know I've chosen to ignore my inner voice. And guess what? It actually comes at a price for deeply sensitive people, because my body, guys, my body was not happy with me and it let me know in a few ways.
Yep.
So, whilst you think you're not doing a huge harm by being nice to someone, you're doing harm to yourself.
And this is what came up. This is what's been coming up for me, like yesterday and the last few days. Shit, I've lost it. Like, being nice. Oh, because I've been watching Big Brother.
Okay, yeah.
And now, typically, I'm not like, I don't watch Love Island and all that, but Big Brother, I kind of fell off. I started watching it in the beginning. Anyway, this last season, I've
Yeah.
thoroughly enjoyed, and I'm so glad my friend was like, "Babe, you need to watch Big Brother." And I was like, "No, it's kind of," I've loved it. There's been a few characters in there that I'm like, this whole nice, for example, anyone listening that's been watching Big Brother, Shagun, right? Lovely guy, good looking, charming, dresses well. Nice is what I would put to him. He's a nice guy, right? And what it means is he's been sitting on the fence a lot. He's coming across like he's not really saying what he truly feels, right? He
Because he's being nice.
insists that yes, he insists that he's just being himself, and I'm like, okay, cool. Maybe they're genuinely just are people who don't like to hurt people's feelings. But you don't want to hurt someone's feelings, so that means you're not going to say what you're really thinking, because if what you're really thinking is going to hurt that person's feelings, you're going to choose the nice route. But actually, doing that can cause more harm than good. In trying to lower yourself to make other people comfortable, it does more harm, as you said, to yourself, but equally to the other person who you're not telling them the truth.
Yes.
You're
And
not
I think
telling
that's
them the truth.
hateful. I
How
think
they choose, yeah, I think it's dangerous. How they choose to handle the truth is not your business. What your
no.
business is, how you deliver the truth. Obviously, you're not going to be nasty if you know your intentions are genuine and pure and well intended. Then you shouldn't have to worry about it because you know your intentions are pure. How that person receives it is more about them and what's going on for them and how they process things. But actually,
Yeah.
you're doing more harm than good, which comes to a topic of, like you said, relationships. My struggles have been friendships, and there's a particular friendship that I just feel like, actually this year is when I realized I don't no longer want to be in friendships or deeply invested in friendships where people are just being nice to me, because actually I really do honor, and I've said it to all my friends, I honor honesty, transparency. It doesn't matter how it comes. I need you to be transparent and honest with me. That is a form of care and love. If you lie
Yes.
to me for the sake of being nice, my spidey senses will pick it up. Also, you're not helping me develop and grow.
That. I think it's hateful to be
It's
untruthful to people. You
yeah,
know, I take it, let's raise it a little bit. I think it's hateful to
I
not tell
agree.
the truth to people,
I
because what
agree.
you're doing basically, you're not telling them how they're influencing a certain dynamic or anything like that. So they don't know that they're doing something wrong, or that they could be doing better, or so on and so forth. So, oh my God, like I have goosebumps because this is something that gets my wheels really going. In my previous relationship that ended,
Wow.
my ex-partner, my ex-fiance, yeah, a man who said that he wanted to marry me, he was being nice, but not telling me how he felt.
Do you see what I
He
mean
was
about the
being
nice
nice.
guy? Do you see how dangerous it is? Do you see? It's dangerous.
It's dangerous because I didn't know where he stood. I didn't know until I read it off his energy. Okay? Until I actually was like, wait a minute. So I find that is hateful. And I
Yeah.
did say that, and I said, I'm sorry, but don't kid yourself that you're a nice
Mm,
person. Don't
mm,
think that you're noble
mm,
for doing that, for
mm,
keeping the truth from me and
mm,
making me realize what
mm.
you didn't have the courage to say. You're not being a nice person, babe.
Yeah,
No.
yeah,
You're just serving
yeah,
yourself. You're trying to make yourself feel comfortable and feel better
yeah,
about yourself so you
yeah,
can go to
yeah,
sleep at night.
yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
All while I'm walking around with blinders on, even though I'm giving you permission to tell me where I'm going wrong so I can be a better human, so I can develop, so I can sit with myself. You think it's so, you know what? It's just, let me equate it for people who are not understanding. You're getting ready for a night out, you and your friends, right?
Yeah.
Remember the days, you're all having your drink, your music on in the background, you're getting ready. Babe, what do you think of my outfit? Now my mind is like, that outfit looks horrendous on you. Actually, it doesn't suit your figure. The shoes don't go. But what comes out of my mouth? Yeah, you look good, babe. Because you don't want to hurt my feelings. So now you've let me go out, looking like something.
Yeah.
People are looking at me, looking at my outfit. But my friends have told me I look
I
good,
look
babe.
good. Yeah.
Or there's bogey in my nose. I'm about to go out into to the public and give a public speech. You've seen it, and it's quite a big one, and you know people can see it. You don't want to rock the boat. You want to be nice. You don't want to tell me I've got bogey in my nose or my hair sticking out or I've got toilet roll because you want to be nice. And so
No.
now it's an area I'm blind to. I've told you as my friend, keep it real with me. I can handle it. Actually, I respect people who keep it real with me. If you're not strong enough to keep it real with me, then we cannot be friends. I've come to this realization. I used to think if I say that, I sound like, ugh, that I sound so cocky. But I have to say to myself now, actually, no, it is what it is.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Only warriors can mess with me now because, and by warriors, I don't mean you go out and do the most. I'm talking internally. You are about that life. You
Yes.
call it out. You tell it like it is. I'm
And
like,
you are
yo,
also open to
yes,
being called out.
yes, yes. And I've said this to all my friends. I've even said it to you. I've said it to my friends.
Yeah.
I've said, yo, I need you guys to tell me my blind spots. I'm not always
Yeah.
gonna know when I've hurt you. I know you lot put
No.
me in this pedestal that I'm very self-aware, but I'm not always going to know that I'm doing something just because. And you know, it goes two ways because sometimes people think, well, she's so self-aware, she must know. So that's why
Oh God, yes.
I've had to communicate to my friends and my partner. Tell me, even my children, tell me, give me feedback. I need feedback
I need to know.
so I can enact self-care, so I can know how to be how to elevate, how to grow, how to progress as a human, you know?
Truth. The truth is a love language for me.
I agree. Same, same, same.
If you're being truthful to me, I take that as the deepest form of love.
I agree. Same
You
for
know,
me.
if you're telling me a hard thing that I know, that is hard to say and it's hard to hear, I'm like, you have love for me. And that's
Mm,
the kind of love that I want in my life because going forward, yeah, into this era of thriving and not just surviving, right? I need to know the truth
yeah.
about you, about me, about what you think, about what I think.
Mm,
I might agree, I might not agree, but it invites us to an open, honest conversation that will eventually, grow our connection deeper. Yeah. Whether we reach a consensus on it or not, we get to know each other better.
yeah.
We know
Because guess
more
what?
about how we
I
work.
now know your boundaries. You now know my boundaries. And if you continue to overstep those boundaries,
Yeah.
now that's a different conversation,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But if I don't know your boundaries and
Oh,
I'm overstepping those boundaries, doing what I think is normal to me and healthy to me, but
and you
it's
don't
not,
tell me.
and you don't tell me, now all of a sudden you're ghosting me, all of a sudden you're being weird. How are you being nice now? By leaving me in the dark,
I
by
think
separating yourself and distancing yourself as your form of self-care. Do you get what I mean? Do you see how it's all just messy? You see how it all gets messy? Now you're practicing self-care. Now you're keeping your distance because maybe I've overstepped a boundary that you didn't want to communicate to me, but I thought I was just being normal, like I was just being me.
exactly. Exactly.
So now tell me in this dynamic who is being, if you've communicated it and I'm still overstepping those boundaries, fine. I'm totally in the wrong. But if you haven't communicated it and I overstep those boundaries and you
You can
expect
tell
me to
me.
know because I'm a mind reader,
that the fact that, you know, we are self-aware, and we are more self-aware than the average people, I'm gathering nowadays. I mean, I thought everyone was like that, but apparently not. So because we are so self-aware, we're surrounded by different people with different levels of self-awareness, but because we talk about it so much, and we present it
Mm,
as the
mm.
forefront of who we are,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
People have this expectation of us for us to just know,
To just know.
and I
Yeah.
think that's so unfair. Like,
Yeah.
how do you expect it? I've said this many times. I also have blind spots. I am
Yeah.
also a human. Do you know what? And I am also on my own personal deep journey. I won't, you
Mhm.
know, I won't always be able to scan the room and see how you're feeling, because that's not my job. That's yours, and that's self care. You know, like taking that,
Mhm.
taking away the
Yeah.
responsibility from
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
to all of a sudden be aware of
Project. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
everyone's energy, and like,
Mm,
oh, is this
mm,
okay, is this
mhm.
okay, is this
Yeah.
person okay, is
Now
this
it's your
person okay?
responsibility. Yeah. I get
It's
you.
not our responsibility to take the temperature in every room. We do
Yeah.
it because it's natural to us, but it drains us, and it takes us away from what we're actually good at,
Yeah.
giving guidance.
Mhm.
Like, or giving our insights, sharing our insights.
Mhm.
Yeah, so with relationships and friendships and everything, I think, um, setting boundaries, setting your own boundaries,
Setting your own boundaries.
knowing what you're made of, knowing what you'll allow and won't allow in your
Yeah.
relationships.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Because there is no one rule for boundaries. Everyone has different levels of boundaries. Everyone has what is a boundary for them.
and sometimes you don't realize you need a boundary until that boundary has been broken.
Wow. Yeah.
Sometimes, you know,
Mhm.
someone will cross you, and you can still go to that person that will cross that boundary that they didn't know about, and approach that in a loving way and say, hey, I didn't even know this about myself, but that actually
Mm,
felt like this for me.
mm,
And I think I'm in a place where I can't accept this.
mhm.
So I think maybe you should work. I don't know. There's ways
Yeah,
of doing
yeah,
it,
I
right?
get you. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's ways of
Yeah.
doing of, and boundaries can change constantly. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they're not set in stone. This is who I
Yes.
am. They're never going to
Because we're
change.
forever evolving. Like I always say, the amount of times I have died and been reborn internally, I think at this point I can't even keep up with myself. Like I'm not, you know, I don't know if you've clocked my TikTok bio changes often.
I haven't actually.
My TikTok bio, and I keep sitting with myself and wondering, why do I do this? And the last bio that I put, I literally put it last night. I was like, I'm not the same person I was yesterday. So there's pretty much no point of even putting a bio because how I felt yesterday and the bio, like previous to that, my bio was mother and wife, healing and rediscovering, you know, all that. And then yesterday I was like, actually, I don't want that as my bio. I don't know what my bio is going to be because every day I'm a different person. Like every day I'm learning something new. I'm growing. I'm changing. I'm discovering. I'm remembering. Like, oh, actually, that didn't feel nice. Actually, that is a boundary. That didn't feel nice. Actually, oh, I didn't feel good. In this dynamic. Why did I not feel good? Because I betrayed myself. What do you mean you betrayed yourself? I wasn't being true to myself. I wasn't being authentic because I felt like if I was to be authentic, people wouldn't like me. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm
Self-inquiry.
thank you. Yes, good term. Self-inquiry. So I guess I say that to say, yeah, you're right. We're forever changing, forever evolving, forever growing. Yesterday
And
I
we're
liked
allowed to.
dark chocolate. Today I realize I don't like dark chocolate.
But we're allowed to. We're allowed to. And
Yeah.
I was saying, like, you know, I don't think there is boxes for us
Mm-hmm.
to fit in. That's it. You know, and I think that's where the conflict has come for a lot of the time. that we've been in, because we've looked at all of these boxes that they have available and we don't fit in one, you
Yeah.
know?
Yep. And I feel like that's why we're trying to create our own space. And
Yes.
also just not even create our own space, because even that, creating that space, you're still boxing yourself. I think we're
Yeah.
just trying to open space and hold space for others and for ourselves, the part of us that was not allowed to be, and for others to realize actually we're so multifaceted, multidimensional. We're living on multiple timelines all at once. So there are some of us who you cannot contain us. There are
No.
some of us you just cannot contain us.
I think you cannot predict us either, you know?
You cannot
You-
predict us. I said that this morning to my to my eldest. I was driving and we were listening to all my liked songs on Spotify in the car. No, this was yesterday, and 1 minute, 1 minute, hip hop came on. The next minute, classical came on. The next minute, some indie song came on. The next minute, garage came on, and he was like, "What the hell is this playlist, Mum?" I was like, "Oh, it's just all my like songs," and he was like, I was like, Bubs, I listen to all sorts of music. And I was like, listen, never let them know your next move, because you don't know what sort of music is coming on next, do you? Because I listen to all sorts of music. So never let
yeah.
someone know your next move. It's okay to be unpredictable,
Yeah.
but not unpredictable in a way where it's harmful to other people. So when I say,
Unpredictable, not to be read as volatile.
thank you. Thank you. That's what I was trying to say. That's what,
Yeah, you know? That's what came up because I was like,
yeah.
yeah,
That's what I
but
was
not
trying to say.
volatile.
Yes, thank you. Perfectly. I like the way you just captured that, encapsulated that in one word. Um, there's so many more other questions. This topic is
Yeah.
so deep, self-care. I don't know if there's anything else coming up for you that you want to sort of touch on or discuss.
I think that if we were to conclude what we've talked about today for whoever's tuning in and listening, what can they take away from our conversation as of self-care? Because one big thing, self-care and self-inquiry, they just go like that. You know, that's how I kind
Mm,
of
mm.
see it. And self-care can look like anything that makes you feel better. However, you need to be very careful with
I was
self-care.
about to say, feel better. I mean, once upon a time, alcohol made me feel better.
Same, yeah, 100. I completely understand that because when I said that, yeah, that came up.
Instantly. Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. I think what's coming up for me is self-care starts from within,
Yeah,
because it's the self, it's the I. It starts from within. When you really sit with yourself to understand yourself, who you are, and what that means for you in relation to others, in relation to self, in relation to the world, and you really put in the work, however that looks like for you. I cannot sit here and list what that looks like. Yeah, I can give you overviews, boundaries. What is boundaries? You can, there's so many, but whatever that looks like for you, that is continuous growth, that aids in your growth and your personal spiritual development. Once you really put in that work to do that, the rest comes, because guess what? When you feel good, and you are putting in the work to develop yourself mentally, physically, spiritually, everything else falls into place. So if you want that job, babe, go get that job, because guess what? You feel good, you feel amazing, you believe in yourself, you believe in your self-worth, you believe you are worth 50K. Because once upon a time, I would look at jobs that other people would tell me I could absolutely get, but I didn't believe I could get them. I didn't believe in my worth. So I would look at jobs that were 19K instead of 50K, for example. So when you really sit with yourself and look within, the without just falls into place. then you can you can make the money to do your nails and to be the it girl, whatever is the next trend out there, if you subscribe to that. Do you get what I mean? Or the muscle guy, because guess what? You can afford to either pay for a gym, or mentally you have now the discipline to get up and do 50 push-ups in the morning. Do you get what I mean?
100%.
That's my takeaway for today, without being prescriptive or giving specific advice, because self-care is different for different people.
Because they're different selves. Because no self, you can't take care of yourself the way I take care of myself. Because, you know what I mean? Yes, we might have things in common, but it cannot be prescribed like that, can it? For anyone. And I think that's why we decided to talk about this, because it's so important for people to understand that self-care is not prescribed. You know,
Yeah.
just because it doesn't look like it looks on a reel on Instagram,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean you're not caring for yourself. The
Yeah.
important thing is where does that come from? You know, that action that you're doing for self-care, for why are you
Yeah.
doing it?
Yeah. Again, self-inquiring. Yeah. And please don't
Exactly.
ever feel pressured. Easier said than done. I have moments where I fall into this. Do not feel pressured, please, women, men, to be looking at the IG baddies, or be looking at your friends who seem to be living a life that portrays the self-care that we've been sold, right? Focus on yourself. Don't feel like, oh, my life in the real world is I'm actually doing the work, but I don't have anything to show for it. Yes, you do. In your being, you have everything to show for it. Your being speaks for itself. You don't have to put it in a reel. You don't have to put it on a post. You don't have to scream for the whole nation to see. Just your being is enough. Your being speaks for itself. Be the person you want to be. Be the change you want to see in the world. That's a form of self-care.
100. Amen.
I
I love
guess if you
that.
have anything else to add, I feel like this is a good time to bring it to a close. If you have anything
Yeah.
else to add.
No, I think we've covered so much base today, and it's been so enlightening for me.
Mm,
I've had a few downloads through this,
mm,
so
yeah.
I was like, okay, we're constantly learning. We're constantly learning about self and
Mm,
self-care and what that means and what that looks like. And I think the kindness that you have for yourself in that moment, and yet if we do go on Instagram and look at things, to have the grace for yourself, to
mm,
understand that
mm,
a lot of it is performative. I'm
mm,
not saying that it's not good, but try to look past it and try to make it for you,
mhm.
and not try to make it look like someone else's
Yes,
version of self-care.
yes.
That's all I can take away today, to be fair.
Yeah. Well, I've really enjoyed this session. I really have enjoyed
Same.
this topic, and I think I feel like we're just scratching the surface when it comes to this topic, but hopefully we've covered enough that people or someone will resonate with.
Yeah.
And feel free, please, in the comment section, in the chat, to just leave your comments and give us some feedback, or if you have any questions or any any further topics you'd like for us to discuss relating to this topic, do let us know. And once again, we appreciate your time, we appreciate you listening, and yeah, keep supporting us.
Thank you so much for this conversation today, Lynette. It's been
Me too.
soul food.
Yeah, it has. Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you, Lynette.
All right, guys, see you again in the next one.